What up, family? Before we roll this episode, which was recorded Thursday, I would like to add a quick preamble. And this preamble is specifically for those of you who stood for Palestine the past 2 years. First thing I need you to do is go and subscribe and follow to the People's Court channel down below, and I'll explain later. So for most of those 2 years, Colonial Outcast has provided geopolitical analysis on the crumbling of the empire and the acceleration of fascism across the world, including against Palestine. We have been very explicit in our opinion that our current electoral system and the current institutions of power hold absolutely no redemption and no reprieve from what is going on. We have been very clear that nobody is coming to save us but us. Of course, we are always met with the neoliberal response of, well, then what will work? If there is no hope in the current system working for us, then what's the alternative? What's the answer? And it remains the same as it always has been. Revolution. But that's an easy word to say without a plan. And this episode is the first episode that is not dedicated to geopolitical analysis, but rather the answer to those questions, the plan. And this episode is the first episode on Colonial Outcast dedicated not to geopolitical analysis, but to a call to action. And the call to action is to you, the audience, to form a community out of the Colonial Outcast family by joining the People's Corps. As you know, or may not know, the People's Corps was the muscle behind the Black Panthers in the 1960s. They're the ones that ran the free health clinics, the free ambulatory services, the free Shoes for Kids program, basically all the social programs that the U.S. government currently uses today, but it was ripped off from the Black Panther Party. We are asking you as the audience to join the People's Corps. And the current plan of action and agenda of the People's Corps today is the Four Winds approach to united sovereignty. And it's the blueprint that we feel is the way forward to building an alternative system to the crumbling empire we're experiencing right now. But we need your help. We want the Colonial Outcast family to take our shared values for liberation and turn it into an actual community. We want you to be part of a team that helps us roll this plan out to as many people and communities as possible. Now, you can read the full plan on u8.net. U8 is short for United Against the Elites. It's a very universal motto, a very universal goal that just about anybody could agree with. Now, if you like the plan and you feel like you have the bandwidth to be a part of the People's Corps leadership, we have a team waiting for you. And I realize this is a big ask, but if you can actually build a sovereign community where you live based on the Four Winds plan and bring the People's Corps to your neighborhood, and you can document that via video vlogging, we will platform you on this channel and we will try to support you in any way possible. So that being said, let's get into it. As always, love you, fam.
Hello and welcome to Colonial Outcast, the anti-imperials podcast. I'll be focusing on the domestic front today because if you accept that fascism is imperialism turned inward on the citizens of the empire itself, we are here, baby. Tech billionaire Larry Ellison, who started Oracle with CIA venture capital money, and a constellation of other billionaires will finally get their way, buying the very app they wanted to kill a year ago for being, quote, too pro-Palestinian. We're talking about TikTok here. Ellison, the second richest man in the world and the single biggest private donor of the Israeli Defense Forces, has direct stakes in a head-spinning galaxy of news, television, and Hollywood media companies, mainly through the recent Paramount Skydance Corporation takeover. It's been all over the news and highly controversial. It's going to be a mega conglomerate now run by his son, David Ellison, who reportedly is on the cusp of making vigilantly pro-Israel journalist Barry Weiss a top exec at the newly acquired CBS. Ellison the Elder is also a major stakeholder in X and Tesla. He obviously has a stake in OpenAI, since Oracle and OpenAI's new data center is the flagship site of the $500 billion Stargate program in Abilene, Texas. That site is the first of the Stargate programs to come online and is up and running with Oracle cloud infrastructure and racks of NVIDIA chips. This isn't the only AI data center going up. More than 220 gigawatts. Guys, bear with me. I'm gonna tie this all together. A big project. Have asked to connect the Texas electric grid by 2030, according to December data from the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. More than 70% of those projects are data centers, according to ERCOT, which manages the Texas power grid. That's more than twice the Lone Star State's record peak summer demand this year of around 85 gigawatts, and its total available power generation for the season of around 103 gigawatts. Okay, so Here, bringing it back. If you're going to get pissed at the pro-Palestine activists for calling out Jasmine Crockett's corporate Democrat stance on Israel and frame this as a single issue voter thing, you're a political reactionary. And if you don't have pattern recognition by now, not a lot of faith that you can develop it. Just kidding. We are actually going to get you and your liberal suburban Gavin Newsom loving Sonoma Valley wine on site eventually. Okay. To quote Kwame Ture, activists mobilize for issues, revolutionaries organize against systems. There is no such thing as a single issue voter. That's DNC propaganda, unless that single issue is the system itself. Okay. Because as of time of recording, Thursday, the 18th, this will probably be released this weekend, Democrats will not release the 2024 election loss autopsy that they commissioned. The DNC chair says, as a report on the Kamala Harris's loss to Trump would be a, quote, distraction, as the party is putting our learnings into motion. To quote an insider, originally quoted by The Guardian, we're, quote, winning again, even in places that haven't gone blue in decades. In our conversations with stakeholders, from across the democratic ecosystem, we are aligned on what's important, and that's learning from the past and winning the future. Here's our North Star. Does this help us win? If the answer is no, it's a distraction from the core mission. So there'll be zero transparency. It'll be more toe the line, vote blue no matter who, and we all know how this story ends. A brief respite, a couple of measly reforms before Republicans take power again and drag everything further right and undo it. Because, quote, now is not the time has been the dictum of DNC elites ever since I can remember. Now is not the time for any sort of revolutionary change. Things are too precarious and dangerous right now. So vote blue no matter who. But in the end, the Democratic Party is not a functional institution. It's a brand marketed by corporate interests that will always collapse into fascism to protect their capital and access to political power. All right. So how long are you guys going to keep getting played? And you may ask, so what's the plan? You're always so quick to hate with no plan or no vision for the future. Well, we are going to change all of that today. I am your host, Greg Stoker, joined by co-host Mark Wayne and two very special guests to help us walk through the plan. We've got Bunchy Carter, National Minister of Defense for the Black Panther Party and the Panther Party. His father was a Panther from the original vanguard. He started the BPP back up a few years ago with the blessing and counsel of the original Panthers. And after not being satisfied with other movements, keeps the party in line with the original direction and ideology of Huey P. Newton. Then we've got Doc Molotov, National Minister of Education, a Marine Corps veteran, runs the political education classes, and is a good bowler, apparently. Yeah, the Panther Party is the revival of the White Panther Party, founded by Addo, with the blessing of the original White Panther founders, who required that white be taken out of the name if it was to be revived, because it was exclusionary and for some other reasons. And, they did so, and the BPP and TPP work together as one effort. And we are going to be talking about the 4 Wins plan. So first of all, guys, thanks so much for coming on.
Of course. Good to be on.
Thank you. Good to have you. I just want to clarify something real quick. When Addo spoke to them about that, they told him at a point, you're going to change the name. And he was like, no, we good. We're good. And then less than a year later, they definitely changed the name. So
yeah. He just said, you're going to change it. He did this kind of thing, like, you're going to change it. You're going to change it. And then he did. Yeah.
And sure enough, they changed it. Absolutely. Well, we changed it. I was a part of that vote as well. I forgot. Yep. But yeah, thank you for having us. Most definitely.
All right. Well, this couldn't come out this couldn't have come at a better time, because we're seeing this. And I don't really like to center one specific state in the United States, but Texas is the 8th largest economy on the planet. If you're running in a statewide race for federal office, it's kind of a big deal. And there's been a controversy between two, not horrible Democratic candidates for the Senate race to challenge John Cornyn, who's awful. We've got Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico, and this controversy over whether or not she supports Israel is kind of endemic of these divisive politics that have kind of been plaguing any sort of critique of our politicians since the beginning. And it just seems kind of inescapable And I definitely think a lot of people feel like these parties are captured and cannot be reformed. And there's now a push to want maybe like third party or like alternate sources of power and influence away from the corporate controlled government. So the Four Winds plan has been something that people have been working on and endorsing. Mark, had a hand in that. So first of all, like, why is it called the Four Winds?
The plan is based on two main things. Huey P. Newton's theory of revolutionary intercommunalism and in the indigenous template of the village. So indigenous cultures around the world tend to have a very similar structure when it comes to how the villages ran. And it was very good until colonialism and intercepted that path. And Huey P. Newton's theory of revolutionary intercommunalism was the next step of socialist theory. He makes the argument that there's no such thing as nations anymore because the U.S. empire is so powerful that no nation has sovereignty. Therefore, this idea that anything is nation versus nation, or that any nation that any nation lives in a bubble on its own and it's independent, is an illusion. And we see that today. Huey P. Newton was very prescient. This is an attempt to basically put a step-by-step plan to Huey P. Newton's theory of revolutionary intercommunalism. That was my intention of putting this out there. And I presented it to the Black Panthers and the Panther Party. I asked them, hey, what do you think about this? Do you think this is a valid way forward? They liked it, and they added some things to it and guided it, and we've been working on it since then. So I'll let Doc and Bunchy talk more about the process of how we got here.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that's immediately where we're going after that. Before we get into this, if you're a member of the audience and you want to follow along with what we are talking about, you can type in to your web browser UATE.net, stands for United Against the Elite.net, and you will see a link for a link to the document for the Four Winds approach to revolution. So, and it's also linked in the description. You can pull it up. So. What was the process? How did this get endorsed, and what do y'all like about it? And you can start in whatever order you want.
What I really appreciate about it is that we need to get people out of, like you were saying, looking for power in the wrong places is essentially what it comes down to. People are looking for power in the wrong places, and people are looking for power by letting some politician have that power for them with the hope that they're going to do something good with it. Because people don't really understand what politics are or what power is, right? Huey Newton in a functional definition of politics, he talks about the idea that political power, is only a reflection of economic power, military power, and feudal or land power, right? So basically, there's no such thing as political power in a vacuum. If you don't have some material resource that gives you the ability to exact a consequence or to physically enforce your will, right? You don't have power. You can't have political power, right? If I get a group of people together today and we have a vote and we sign a document issuing some decree and there's no mechanism to enforce that decree, it effectively doesn't exist, right? So when we talk about getting power for the people and we talk about doing it through the avenues that are generally considered open to us, so electorally, by organizing within the system, right? We have to recognize that what we're talking about is going after political power, but we're not actually getting economic power for ourselves. We're not getting military power for ourselves. We're not getting land power, right? We don't have any material. We don't have any material way to enforce what the people's will, right? And anyone that we get elected, right? Even if we elect a representative who is able to go and speak to our political will, they won't be in a position necessarily, unless we're doing this organizing, to have any sort of actual method of enforcement. Right? It's empty, right? Political power is empty without that physical, material power behind it in one form or another. So what we're trying to do with this plan is develop material power directly in the hands of the people. What we're trying to get people to do is to play stop playing the rigged game and play our own game, right? And that game is, we are going to develop our own material power in our communities. We are going to develop economic power. We are going to develop military power. And when I say economic power, what I mean is we are going to build sustainable infrastructure where we are able to develop means of production that the people collectively own in those communities, right? If we are, what we are able to hold for ourselves, what we are able to use for ourselves, we are not selling our labor to a capitalist and getting money back and using that to buy what we need, but we're making the things that we need in our community, right? And we have the power over that. We are not giving our power to representatives and having them pass laws for the pigs to enforce with the hope that somehow that's going to keep us safe. We're keeping ourselves safe. We have military power with which to do that, right? We're putting this power directly in the hands of the people. And there is no, what we're doing is we're asking people to take power, and we're asking people to take responsibility. Stop shoving responsibility off on Democrats who are not there for you, right? Because that's what we're doing, and that's why we keep voting for Democrats, right? Is that we're like, oh, let's make it their responsibility to fight fascism, right? Let's make it their responsibility to help my community, right? It's a way for people to dodge the responsibility of taking care of our neighbors.
So
right?
I guess practically, well, first of all, we know that it was such a threat, like when this program got up and going, in the bygone time in the 60s, 70s, that, political assassinations happened in order to forestall this. So I guess my question for Bunchy is like, what did that look like then? Just for the audience to begin generally conceptualizing this, what did it look like then? And how would that look like now, given the changing material conditions and, electoral politics look a little bit different. You have the rise of this increasingly scary national security state. So what are your thoughts?
You ever notice when you leave a place and you're going for a long time and they build a lot of new stuff and you go back and you feel like you're lost because you're like, this is totally different. Mm-hmm. It's not totally different. It's the exact same shit. It just looks different.
Okay.
Right. So here's my thing. And in the 60s, in the 50s, the 60s, during the entirety of that period when these political assassinations were taking place, the whole purpose behind it was stated very clearly by J. Edgar Hoover. We are trying to prevent the rise of a black messiah. There's a reason why Huey survived that period, because they didn't see him as that. They saw Fred Hampton as that, and that's why Fred Hampton died. They saw Bunchy Carter as that. That's why Bunchy died. They saw the potential for Eldridge Cleaver, who didn't deserve it, but was eloquent enough that he could have achieved that. He had to get ran out of here. Stokely Carmichael, oh my God, please get him gone. We can't let this happen. The same shit happening now. It's the same game. The only difference is it looks different. You know why it looks different? Because now in some of the places where we knew previously we didn't have power, they put faces there to make us believe we do. So now when you see, the first thing they tell you is, there can't be that much of a disparity. There are plenty of wealthy black people. Really? What do most of them do? The biggest group of wealthy black people you're going to find all at one time probably all play for the same team. Literally. Literally. So the problem that we're facing right now is this. Anytime you put a person with a face that looks like mine or anything close to this shade in front of people that says, hey, what the government is doing is incorrect, we have a right to stop that. We have every right granted by the documentation that quote unquote formed this country to put the brakes on it if it's not working and build something that works for us. Right? Mm-hmm. But in the event that happens, what happens? Now, they can't just go outright kill people the way they did then. That's a little too difficult. Because the state that you've created with all the surveillance is going to screw you in that case. Mm-hmm. So now you have to kill people in different ways. You kill people by, A, neutralizing their community so they're unable to organize. So it doesn't matter how eloquent a leader is. It doesn't matter how great your idea is. If you aren't able to organize people underneath that idea and to get them to practically engage with it, it's useless. That's what they've done. I told somebody one time when they asked about restarting the party, I said, you know why it's been so difficult? I can tell you why it's been so difficult. We have jobs. We have lives. They put it to the point where now being a full-time revolutionary is damn near impossible. You have got to work. And because you have to work, that's at least 8 hours a day that you're not out here doing revolutionary work, right? So now, with that being the case, that changes the dynamic. That changes our ability to be in the community in front of the people when we have to be in these jobs to make money. But anytime a movement gets stopped, what happens? The leaders get locked up or killed, but not only do they do that, they do their best to decimate the power base of that movement. So anytime you choose to reinvigorate that, you are basically starting from zero. And that's where we sit right now. So that's why the 4 wins are so important, because now that gives people a more practical thing to grab a hold of so they don't be afraid of dying. It sounds a whole lot cooler to say, hey, this is 4 wins. This is what we're going to do to build a community, as opposed to saying, if you get out here and you tell these people that they're doing the wrong thing, you're going to end up in a box. That's all I got. Sorry. That's all I got.
No,
it's not a very optimistic outlook. I guarantee I can give you that, but it's the truth. So I mean, it is what it is.
Well, going back to what you said in the green room before we even hit record, you said, like, what's the answer right now? Like, what's the solution, leftist? What's the solution, radical? If voting Democrat and voting Republican is not the answer, then what is the answer? And the simple answer is we have to tear the whole thing down. We have to go outside the system. We have to create a new system. And that seems like a huge, ambitious task. But the fact of the matter is we do it all the time and we don't even realize it. We build, there's things that we do on a daily basis that if it were organized and if it was more intentional and if it was on a mass scale, we could create a parallel system. Tomorrow, we really could. Because you look at, and I always bring up the natural disaster movies. Whenever you see Hollywood, they put out a natural disaster movie. What do you see? The first thing is panic. Everybody's robbing each other. Everybody killing each other. That's not what happens. That's not how it happens, but it's a form of propaganda, and it's designed. These movies are designed to give us the impression, especially Americans, the impression that this is how human behavior naturally is. But you look at what happens in Hurricane Helene. What happened? It decimated Appalachia, and what did people do? They started opening up free kitchens. They started these. I know a bunch of you hate the term mutual aid. What do you call it? What's the term that you prefer?
Survival program.
Survival programs. Yeah. So survival
mutual
programs.
Aid has a limit.
Yeah, exactly. So they would start these stations, survival stations, where people can get free stuff. They were collectivizing, and what happened? The feds came in. The feds came in and started destroying these stations. Police came in and stopped restaurants from serving people the extra food that they had. The reason why, and there was a complete blackout on social media coming out of Appalachia because they knew how dangerous that is when people start getting in this mindset that, hey, we can actually take care of ourselves. You look at free ambulatory services, SNAP, WIC, these free national food programs for kids. All of that was started by the Black Panthers. The U.S. government co-opted it because they said, hey, if we don't get to this first, then people will stop depending on the government and our system, and they'll start doing this themselves. So, and you look at...
Okay, well, yeah. First of all, people might want some clarification with that. Are you drawing a direct connection from like SNAP benefits and all these like social welfare programs and what the Panthers were doing to build parallel?
No, they directly pulled from that. SNAP and WIC are directly based off of the programs of the Black Panthers. After the U.S. government subverted and destroyed the Black Panther Party through assassinations, they took those programs, made it government, made it federal, and then say, hey, we just came up with this great idea for the people. Like it just popped out of somebody's ass up in Washington. But it's always been, and you look at, and this is how every progress has been made throughout American history. The reason why we have 5-day, 8-hour work days is because of blood. Blood was shed to get us that. Unions fought back with guns. Communities resisted against law. And so the only way out of this, it's not through voting. The only way out of this is if we have a revolution. And I understand that revolution is a scary word, and they automatically think of a Molotov cocktail. No offense, Doc, but they automatically think of somebody pulling up a Molotov cocktail and throwing it at a police car. No, eventually it's going to take an actual physical resistance. But how do we get there? And that's what the 4 wins is for. It's to build the infrastructure for a full-on withdrawal from capitalism and us building what we're terming united sovereignty. I remember
that was going to be my next question. So united sovereignty, what is that fundamentally? Whoever wants to go.
So it's all about the notion of revolutionary intercommunalism, and what we're talking about is we want everybody to be in charge of their own community. We want people to have sovereignty within their community, and we want to put the power back in the hands of the people wherever they are. Again, we want to give them the power, economic power. We want them to develop their own economic power. We want them to develop their own capacity to defend themselves. We want them to develop their own political mechanism so that we can democratically decide, what we want the rules to be, instead of just following whatever is dictated by the state. Like in our communities, we can determine what makes sense for our communities in terms of how everyone needs to be governed. Right? We have self-governing, independent, sustainable communities that can defend themselves and can feed themselves, right? That's the sovereignty part. The united part is we need to recognize what the situation is, right? Which is that the war that is being waged against us, the class war, is not a war that's being waged against any one community, but is being waged against all of the people. And that does not mean that everybody is oppressed or exploited to the same degree, right? We can recognize certainly that many communities are more oppressed than others. Many communities are more exploited than others, right? We don't all have the same problems, but the same people are the root of all our problems, right? And that we need to be united in order to fight against them, right? We need to be united against the elite, right? And that means that we are communicating with each other. That means that we're strategizing together. That means that we're paying attention to the economic and material capabilities of each community and figuring out how we can help each other to create a system that's sustainable for everyone, right? And that allows us to build power together, right? Because if we just have a bunch of groups, a bunch of neighborhoods independently resisting oppression, that's good, right? And this plan is to get us there, right? But they can pick us off one at a time, right? At that point in time, if they decide it's a problem. And look, at no point in time am I going to say that we should be initiating armed hostilities against anyone.
Wouldn't work, right?
Did I say that? I didn't say
no, we would never say that. But at a certain point, they're going to initiate those hostilities against us, right? At a certain point, they will be so sick of people going and serving their communities and building things for their neighbors and for themselves, and spending our days spending 4 hours a day doing some work for the community and then just chilling out with everybody and having a great time. They're going to get so sick of losing money and labor because we're all doing that they're going to send pigs in, right?
And under the lamest pretext, we already see this with food not bombs programs throughout the country. They can't just send cops in to beat a bunch of activists up and throw their food out, at least in this day and age. All right. But what they can do is bureaucratic warfare, be like, oh, you don't have a permit. Okay. Yeah. We didn't know we didn't need a permit. Oh, well, you do now. And, can't really prove it, but you don't have a permit. So you got to go. It's going to be cruelty is the point, and they'll weaponize the entire system and the ponderous mechanisms of it to stop these kind of things from happening. Oh, it might come to a place where, oh, your house is not zoned for a workshop that other people can roll up to at random times during the day. It's a zoning violation, so you can expect this kind of thing going forward.
That's the key. Weaponizing bureaucracy was at the forefront of me when I was formulating this whole thing, because back a few decades ago, regulation for small businesses, for average people, has exceeded. Regulation for big businesses has been crunched down and become more easier. It's easy for big Wall Street Fortune 500 companies to make deals that are very unethical, and they're able to just cut through that with legal butter, like legal butter with their lawyers. For us down below, if I want to start a cafe where I'm just making cups of coffee, It's going to cost me $500,000 worth of capital. It's going to cost me, I have to cut through a ton of regulations just to do it. So when you hear the term "Make America Great Again," right? What they're doing is trying to invoke nostalgia. And I've been making this point. What the right wing is actually craving deep down, the nostalgia they're actually going to subconsciously, were the days where you were able to be more sovereign. But it's been replaced with racism. It's been replaced with bigotry. It's like, no. What you really miss about the old days is the fact that you used to be able to use the N-word. And then people on the right are like, yeah, that'll fix my problems. And then it worked. But in fact there was a time where we were more sovereign. And what you've been seeing is we become less and less sovereign. So at the forefront of my mind when I created this plan is like, we need to start making neighborhoods fortresses. They need to start being villages again. And the problem, one of the biggest problem with the biggest obstacle for revolution is the fact that we don't have the village anymore.
So this was going to be like my next question, and I'd like all three of you guys like feedback on this, because that kind of seems like in this day and age where everybody's so like isolated in end stage capitalism, just trying to like exist, you don't really know your neighbors anymore. Like looking at like if I'm bringing up, you know, all these different sections, we got mutual aid, community service, community health, deposits, clinics, sovereign self-defense, veteran integration, low-tech sovereignty, fabrication, comm systems, an ambassador program in between all these different communities, defense and intelligence, innovation cells and supply chains. Like, people are so separated from what that even looks like. How do we even start doing this?
I mean, realistically speaking, from a defense standpoint, you know what makes defense easy? Having something to defend. So that's how you put this to people, because that part of it is probably going to be the last part to develop, simply because people don't understand the necessity. See, we've been put in such a low rent version of defending our communities, and most people's ideas, the concept of defending the community comes down to the neighborhood watch and calling the police. That's them defending their community. And mind you, I get why you feel that way, because I understand what you've been taught. You're wrong, and that's okay. You can be wrong, but here's the thing: as we begin to bring people to the understand, see, this is where you have to hit them. Groceries are super expensive. People can't eat, but if you grow it, you can eat it. That eliminates an entire problem. That just took a whole problem off your plate. I don't even have to worry about this anymore. You understand what I'm saying? There's a certain degree of exuberance that comes from freedom that people don't understand that they can create for themselves. The concept of freedom in their brain has been convoluted by what America has told them freedom is. So as we start to implement these things, and you tell people, oh, you can grow your own food. Oh, and you want to talk about education? Well, let's really talk about education. Not what you get in the classroom, but this is what educating your community looks like. Because the necessity for your community may not be for this person to know algebra 2. Maybe he knows how to grow. Maybe he needs to know how to grow tomatoes. Maybe he needs to know how to take apart, clean, and put back together a gun. Maybe that's what his expertise needs to be in. But at that junction, you begin building and fortifying the foundation of what the future of that sovereign community looks like. And now the only way that you're able to connect these pieces, and this was the idea from the beginning. And this is something, and they'll tell you on our very first call, this is what I said. Start with one place, one community. Because if you start with one, less of a headache for one. But also, now everybody else asks the question, wait, what's happening over there? Why don't the police go into that neighborhood anymore? Why don't we see Jerry and Judy at the grocery store anymore? Why don't little Timmy and little Tom come to school anymore? There's a reason. And we can share with you why that is. We can share with you how that's happening. And not only how it's happening here, but how you can make it happen where you live, simply by implementing the same principles and shaking off your chains. See, people are scared to shake their chains off because they think their chains are keeping them afloat. It's really the people, the community, the people that you said something earlier, Greg, and I say it on a regular basis. I can count on one hand the number of people I know who live somewhere where they can name 5 of their neighbors.
Yeah.
That part has to change, and it's imperative for that to change in order for Four Winds to be effective, or any revolutionary movement for that matter. You can't have revolution in a place with disunity, because it's bound to fail. That's all I got.
I mean, honestly, that seems like that has to be the square one. Be like, who is your neighbor? Like, literally, that's when we're adversarially asked what the plan is. I guess you could be like, look, well, let's just take this thing one step at a time. Learn who your like everyone on your block is. Like, even if you don't like them, just learn, know who they are.
If you notice,
you ain't got to like nobody to be free.
Yeah.
If you notice the first page of this plan, I think it's the first page. The first thing I put there is I wanted to prepare whoever's going to read that document. Like, what are the first steps you would take before they get overwhelmed with this plan? And the first thing I said is, before you get overwhelmed with it, start simple. It all starts with you going to your neighbors, getting to know them. And then once you've gone door to door and got to know a few of your neighbors, arrange a meeting, whether it be a barbecue, a potluck, whatever. Just get people physically in the room, and then start asking them, what are your problems? And like, a lot of activism is based on asking people to care about other problems. Rarely does activism involve going up to people and say, hey, what are you going through? When you start to do that, you activate a part in people where they realize that you are not just seeing them as a potential ally or asset. You're seeing them as somebody that you care about. And therefore, they're going to care about what you care about. So when you start just going to your neighbors and just ask them the simple question, what are you going through right now? What are you suffering from? What are you lacking? Let's brainstorm. Then that's the first step of forming community. When you actually show them, hey, I'm actually concerned about your well-being. And from there, you form councils, you form meetings, you start to assign roles, you start to see what people's expertise are. And then the magic just starts happening. It all starts with just a simple meeting with your neighbors to the north, the south, the east, and the west, which is why it's called Four Winds. It's based on the Native American theory, or the Native American philosophy of the four winds. You're looking at the four directions of the compass. It represents the world around you. So that's why I called it the Four Winds. And it's that simple. Starting off, you just get to know those four neighbors, and people will be surprised how many problems in your life you could actually solve by collectivizing with the four neighbors around you. Starting with that, that includes building up communications, building a self-defense plan. Now they're looking after your house, you're looking after their house, so you have that support network. Hey, what if there's something that all four of y'all can buy together, but not one of y'all can buy a solo? Say, what if we bought a water tank so that we're all good in case there's a water shutdown? Let's all pitch in some money, $50 each, and we can afford a very large water tank. Let's pitch in money to buy a truck so that we can start sharing that truck. Things like that, little things like that can alleviate so many problems with just your four neighbors. Now imagine if each four houses starts linking up to the next four houses, in which case you form a sovereign neighborhood. Now you're really adding fuel onto the fire. Now you're including doctors, nurses, mechanics. God knows what you can do. So I always tell people are not afraid of your vote at the ballot box. The elites who are in charge, they're not afraid of you with your vote. And they've been like inciting this type of mentality that like, oh, we're really afraid you're going to vote for us in the midterms. Oh, please don't vote us out. No, but they are afraid of you voting in your neighborhood. They're scared shitless of you forming a council in your neighborhood and start voting on what we all can collectivize on, because that means money out of their pockets. That's what they're fucking terrified of. And that's what this is based on. So it's a step-by-step, low-stress type of guide to how you can start doing this. And like
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to bring this, not to interrupt. I just wanted to bring this up before I forget. Like, once you actually start building those connections, you can actually organize as like a block. And actually start showing up to stuff. Like, one of the biggest checks, I brought this up at the beginning of the episode, one of the biggest problems for working Americans right now, especially in rural areas, and it's only going to get worse, are data centers. And and I was just listening to leaked audio of a Microsoft lawyer saying one of the most effective ways to stop that is by local councils. They're the ones that, do the zoning, that vote on, what can be built where. So a lot of the work is trying to sell people on why a data center would be a good thing and hope they don't show up to vote on it.
Yeah.
And so like that's another thing. Like it's also a way to access like local power as well. Because of course, no one cares about like electoral politics, in terms of the presidential election or even the state senate.
No,
Greg Abbott in Texas is going to do all sorts of like lawfare to try to exclude Houston, primarily, Black City, from like being able to mail in their ballots, which is how a lot of Black people vote, especially in Houston. So like, they'll pull that kind of stuff, but they don't have that kind of influence with local stuff. So
right.
Yeah.
They have no control over your neighbor. If your neighborhood decides to form a secret meeting with all the neighbors and start voting on stuff, they can't control that. And they're scared. They're very scared of that because that means like you're getting people in that neighborhood personally involved. And it's nothing they can track. They can't track it. They don't know what the votes are. They don't know what we're voting on. It's completely asymmetrical electoral warfare we're basically waging on them, and they're scared shitless of that. But that's why they constantly put messaging on dividing us along electoral lines. That's why he said, "Ooh, you're not supporting this candidate? Oh, you're a bad fucking person because you're not putting your whole heart and soul into supporting this person who's running in the midterms." It's a way of getting us to put our revolutionary energy into some
fighting in the comments section. So I think I was actually talking to Maggie about this because we just moved into a new neighborhood. I don't know anybody. But the first people I might start like being like, "What's up?" are people who actually like fly political flags in the front, like Palestine, BLM, something else. That could be like if you just go around your neighborhood and see people, who automatically align with you politically, that may be an easier in because they might already know other neighbors and I could expand that way. So I think we've kind of covered that. If you guys again want to have a bigger, more comprehensive guide, you can just take a look at what we've got going on here. So we've talked about the organizational structure in broad terms, and I think you guys wanted to talk about sections individually. Like how do you guys want to take this? Because guys, it is a 96-page document with a whole bunch of different chapters. So
112.
112. Oh, sorry.
A little 108, maybe 100.
And growing.
It's a constantly evolving document.
Evolve, yeah.
It's a living document, y'all. So
yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to go into who's the support structure behind this whole plan. It's obviously the Black Panthers, but who's going to be the muscle behind it and getting this out there? As you know, the Black Panther Party is very small. It's small in numbers. We're stretched thin, and the Panther Party is stretched thin. We are trying to crowdsource this plan through what's called the People's Corps, and I'll let Bunchy explain who the People's Corps is, what this has to do with all this.
I mean, the People's Corps is kind of it kind of developed out of something we've already been doing, which is like we have a dedicated chat, dedicated chat for members of the community in Tacoma, where we have opportunity to share events that are taking place, community needs that may pop up. The National People's Corps is somewhat of the same thing, but most of these people are diehard activists or they're movers and shakers in their specific areas, and they all bring something different to the table. And the beauty of that is there are different elements of the Four Winds program that is going to be able to be enacted first in all of these various places because of the differential between the people who are part of it. One thing that I've loved seeing within the People's Corps already is just the willingness to share ideas and information. And as long as that remains a thing, as it continues to grow, sharing those ideas and information is only going to make it easier to organize greater numbers of Panthers in some of these same places. Because let's be honest, I'll just be honest about this. And those of you who are in the People's Corps, if you see this, whatever, tell me I'm lying. But 90% of the people in the People's Corps want to be Panthers anyway, and that's fine. But the National People's Corps is a way for you to become familiar with what the operation is, how things are moving, be a part of implementing these things in your own community. And perhaps at some point, when it becomes appropriate, we had that other discussion. But for right now, it's about sharing information, empowering people in different areas, because there are people in very small places who don't have a large network to help empower them in those areas that they exist in. So Those are some of the ways the National People Corps has been effective and has been a major help. Doc is like, honestly, I'll be completely transparent. I've been dealing with some things personally, so I've been out of the loop for a couple of weeks, or probably close to a month at this point. Good to be back in action, but Doc could probably give you a little more insight into more things going on with the People's Corps right now than what I just said. So please, Ron.
Absolutely. So the People's Corps is meant to be a place for anyone with revolutionary intercommunalism on their mind and who wants to take steps to build it in their community, right? Again, there's only so many Panthers, there's only so many Black Panthers, and that's always going to be the case, right? When we look at revolutionary movements, even when they are succeeding, even when they're taking power, it's not like the majority of the people in that society or country or what have you are part of that revolutionary party, right? You have a revolutionary party, and then you have a lot of people who have been activated. Our job as the Panthers and the Black Panthers is not to make the revolution, right? It's to show people the way, right? And it's the people's job to make the revolution, right? And all we're doing is trying to give them the knowledge and the skills and the analysis and the strategy to do that, right?
My question though is how does this idea differ, or does it differ, or is it incompatible or completely compatible with like the Marxist Leninist ideation of a conception of a vanguard party that acts as like the disciplined leading force for the working class?
So in general, I'm gonna say that what we can think of the Black Panther Party and the Panther Party as that vanguard force. Now that is, and the International People's Corps or Intercommunal People's Corps as people who are operating in solidarity with that, who have that message resonates with them, and they are wanting to form the basis for an army, a labor force, and potentially a military force, military and economic force for that revolution being led by the Panther vanguard, right? Now, in reality, I think that we have to recognize that when we talk about a vanguard within the sense of the United States, it's in many ways it's going to be less formal than what we see in the Russian Revolution, right? Like the vanguard is going to be the people doing the work and leading from an ideological perspective, right? I think
anything organized that would be that radical would be instantly destroyed.
They can try.
I mean, yeah. No,
they can try.
I think that, and see, this is part of why this program is so effective, right? Is because it lets us build and it lets us perform the work of the vanguard, right? Of providing that strategic leadership, right? In a way that is much harder to destroy, because it has this decentralized element of individuals working in their communities, right? This plan allows us to give that guidance that people can take and run with in their communities, so that if something happens to us, if something happens to me tomorrow, if something happens to Bunch tomorrow, if they don't miss next time, the revolution can.
You feel me? Yeah, they damn sure tried. But hey, listen, man, I got a real simple question to answer that. I'm gonna answer that question with a question. How difficult do you think it would be for them to destroy the Vanguard Party if they couldn't tell the Vanguard Party from the community? Because we're all doing the exact same thing. How difficult is that? Like, so that's the power of Four Winds. You have a Panther Party chapter, a Black Panther Party chapter operating within the community that they live in that's following these principles. When you look from the outside, it all look like the same thing. Which one of these guys is Doc Molotov? I don't know, because they're all teaching classes, because they're all out here putting in the labor to uplift this community. So now I don't know who's a Panther, who's not. If they're not wearing the logo, I have no idea who they are.
And the citizens are depending on the system.
Like Pantherville. It looks like Pantherville. I don't know what's going on. So like, I'm just saying, It's a deeper strategy behind it, because when you start thinking about, okay, let's put it this way. Let's look at the reality of the situation, right? The reality of the situation is, and I love, Doc, I gotta applaud you for how you've been able to dance around saying certain things since we've been on here. But I'm gonna just say this because fuck it. Why not?
Yeah.
The reality of the matter is this. A, people are gonna start starving, people are gonna start growing food. B, people's houses are gonna start getting taken by the government. So they're gonna have to start building new houses for themselves. C, the schools are teaching your children to be robots. At some point, you're going to realize this and take them out. Then you have to teach them. Once you start doing all of those things, much like you said, Greg, they're coming. Now, what do? The reality is political power has never been in the ballot box. Political power is probably sitting in your fucking holster and you're scared to use it. It's sitting there and you're scared to use it because throughout history, we've been way more comfortable using it on each other. And I don't just mean black people when I say on each other. I mean, citizens have been far more comfortable with utilizing their armaments against one another as opposed to the ones who are actually oppressing their communities. I'll never understand that concept, ever. You know who I have big love for? And it's going to sound crazy when I say this because of who I am. But I'll tell you who I got love for. It's a very twisted kind of love. Let me be clear about that. I got big love for gangs. I love them. I talk to them all the time. You know why? Because I'm trying to turn that love from being a twisted love into the picture it was supposed to be when it started. The reality is they have a better concept of community defense than most people who live in any community ever will.
There's a gang in South Central LA that I talked to. And one thing about them that I always think about when it comes to respect is that they told me that it's very difficult for anybody who's a child predator to be in that neighborhood because they take care of them. And there's a code that they live by. And they don't allow pimping, any type of pimping in their neighborhood. There's nothing, any type of pimping at all. And to me, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. So a gang in South Central LA is doing more to stop crime than law enforcement and government. And it's because, and it just shows that it's a system that works. And there's a mutual respect. That's a form of community. That's a form of consequence that is outside the law, outside government. And I'm thinking to myself, if gangs can do that, imagine what we could do if neighborhoods started to see themselves as fortresses rather than just, oh, I just live in this house, in this neighborhood. I don't know my neighbors. It's like, imagine if that neighborhood becomes your fortress. You can feel safe. You know you're protected. You know that your neighbor's got your back. So, and I've been thinking to myself, like, I was talking to Doc or Kid about this. The fact of the matter is the odds are on our side. They're terrified of our power. That's why they're investing so much in psyops, in divisions, in racism, in political messaging. That's why they're investing so much in surveillance, because they know that the United States specifically potentially holds the largest revolutionary armed force known to man. 80 million Americans own guns. We got our asses kicked in Afghanistan from 70,000 Taliban. We got our asses kicked in Vietnam. We got our asses kicked. Hamas was able to, with only 40,000 members, was able to withstand the entire might of the Israeli military and thus the U.S. military in the past 2 years through tunnels and through tunnels and old school methods. You're talking about a ratio of 11-1. The most that the federal government can muster is 2.2 million. That's including the janitors who are federal, versus 80 million armed Americans. 2.2 million of those are trained snipers who go hunting out in the backwoods and can survive.
I think them janitors going to be on our side.
Right.
I think the janitor's going to be on our side.
Yeah. The janitor's going to be on our side. And that's if they can muster like all the federal forces, which they probably won't, especially if the people are together.
I just lament the fact that like a lot of these 2A guys are like, I love two things: outlaw country and the law. Back the blue, baby. But I think as like material conditions continue to degrade, that might change. Like, I'm not wrong, okay?
Yo, that might be the funniest thing I heard all day. I'm sorry.
Dude, we went from like Obama's gonna bring in a police state to hey, bring on the police state because of the branding. So my thing is, if branding is all it takes, then that's what the left needs to focus on. Let's focus on the branding of this, because theory ain't going to cut it. It could be the most logical plan on the planet. It doesn't matter unless you control the branding, which is why I came up with the acronym U8, United Against the Elites. Because even your most racist motherfucker in the backwoods of Alabama, if you were to ask him, hey, do you believe that elites are fucking over all of our lives? They'll say yes. Okay, boom, common ground. Do you want to do something about it? The racism and the deprogramming from racism, that's going to be an ongoing process. But at least we can get them on board with the thought that you are getting fucked over just like the black person's getting fucked over in Compton. So we're all on this, we're all victims, whether or not we're going to get along ideologically or whatever. We're all should be on the same page for this shit. And that's why United Against the Elites is like the most universal concept as far as like acronym I can come up with.
Yeah. So like, I think what I've always found easier about people on the right, even with problematic like social ideas, is that they know they're being played. You know, a lot of these establishment people who I've been fighting with online for messaging are like liberals who think that the system is inherently good and they just need their faith to be restored in it, and it can be reformed through progressive political change. So that's going to be a challenge. But, you know, I think some of them are starting to realize, especially now that like Mom Donnie has been reversing on a lot of his positions.
Let's talk about that for a second.
I'm sorry, please go ahead. I'm sorry. I can't help it. It's hilarious. No, listen. When you know something, when you know something, and then you see it, you just be like, "Ah, there you go."
Hey, Bunchy, I was telling Greg earlier. I was like, do you know who Mom Dami is? He's that toy that your kid really wants that you know is just like at a break and be a piece of shit. And you tell your kid, hey, like, don't get this toy. It's not going to work. But your kid really wants it. And you're like, all right, unless I get this toy for my kid, he's not going to shut up about it. So you go and buy that toy just so that it can break, just so he can finally be like, all right, did you learn your lesson now? Can we just end this conversation? Nobody's coming to save us.
Yeah, it's not a bad analogy at all.
I mean, anytime, and I think people act like it's, I don't know. When you have somebody who's going to go out and calling themselves a socialist, right, and then go and talk about how, you know, Maduro is this horrible dictator, right, at a time when we're ramping up to invade Venezuela, it seems like, right, or to, you know, engage in some sort of military conflict with them, when we're blockading Venezuela, when we're, you know, airstriking their ships, right, and you have somebody who calls themselves a socialist but is spouting rhetoric that actually helps to sell that, right? Like, that is a betrayal of socialist, you know, ideals. That is a complete betrayal of the revolution, and that's helping the ruling class drag us into war, right? You know, you want to talk about somebody being a dictator, right? Again, you know, Maduro is giving the citizens firearms, right? He's handing out rifles.
It's the most patriotic shit I've ever seen in my life.
What would happen to all the 2A people? Like, anyone who's Second Amendment should be demanding that our government gives every able-bodied citizen a rifle, right? Gives every adult who wants one a rifle, right? Yes. Unless we are less free in this country than they are in Venezuela, unless there is more dissatisfaction against the government than there is in a dictatorship, right? There is no political reason for them not to hand us all rifles. Why can't they do that? Because it's more of a dictatorship here. That's why. Right?
Have you seen videos coming out of Venezuela right now of them training civilians? Big people who are just average, like 70-year-old ladies shooting an AK-47 and learning how to survive. I'm like, that's the most community, like, hardcore patriotism I've ever seen in my entire life. What the hell are we doing? And I would think that those images coming out of Venezuela will wake up even your most disconnected redneck or your disconnected right-winger out there and be like, hey, we should probably have the same attitude here, you know? So, yeah.
You ever been real tired? You ever been real tired? What? Like really, really tired. That kind of tired where you don't want to wake up because the dream is way too comfortable. That's why they won't. That's exactly why they won't. Hey, let me ask y'all a question. You ever seen a bird with one wing? Doc, you know where this is going. You ever seen a bird with one wing? Okay, so most birds have two wings, and that's what allows them to do what? That's how they fly, right? That's how they get from point A to point B. So here's my thing, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, this is my personal principled belief about electoral politics. There's this bird We'll just call it a bald eagle. That's the symbol of America. Wow, that's crazy, right? And that bald eagle flies everywhere. Large, powerful bird, and it flies with such grace. But it requires 2 wings for it to fly. Those wings may seem to be opposites because they're on different sides of the bird, but they serve the same purpose. And they have to work together in order for the bird to fly. So listen to me. The next time you go in the booth and you think to yourself, I'm going to just vote all Democrat. I'm going to just vote all Republican. Before you do it, ask yourself this question. When was the last time I believe a Democrat made a change that fundamentally changed my relationship with the oppression that I feel? Conversely, when's the last time a Republican made a change that fundamentally changed or corrected my relationship to oppression? It's never happened. And it's not going to, because that's not the point. It's never been the point. Obama, I'll say this much. I always say, if you're going to lie to me, at least lie to me pretty. I want you to lie to me pretty. Like, I don't want you to lie. Don't tell me an ugly lie, because I can see right through it. That's easy. I want you to lie to me pretty, so I have to be like, wait a minute. No. You don't mean that. But damn, that was good. Lie to me pretty. Obama lied to us pretty enough to prepare us for what's happening right now. It's all a game.
Yeah, it kind of prepped a lot of people. It kind of prepped a lot of people to be absolute reactionaries. Like, we just need to go back to the Obama years when everything was great. You know, make America Obama again.
Back when ICE was expanded, that's what people don't understand, is that everything that Trump is doing with ICE, Obama expanded that. He gave ICE its teeth and its muscle. And, you know, after the Patriot Act, everybody was thinking, oh, Obama's going to reverse that shit. No, he ironcladded the Patriot Act by expanding ICE and giving more and giving contracts to the private prison industry. So yeah, and you know, the thing is, the reason why I believe we're in this golden window is because during the Kamala and Trump election, cycle, it forced a lot of people in the pro-Palestinian movement to make a clear decision. They're like, you know what? The Democrats have been supporting this genocide for a year straight, and Israel would not have even been able to do the genocide without the Democrats. They knew that they had to make a moral choice and disconnect from the Democrats. So you saw this big migration out of the Democratic Party to just this revolutionary body. Now we're seeing the same thing in the Republicans after Trump is signaling very clearly that he plans to strip Americans of every sovereignty that they thought that they had under the Constitution. He's stripping that from them. He's screwing over farmers. He's screwing over all the people that voted for him, and they know it. And of course, the Epstein files add, gasoline on that fire. So now you have a lot of people migrating out of the Republicans. So what do you got? You got this big soup of pissed off Americans. And the question is, what now? Like Bunchy taught me when I first met him, the first conversation I had with Bunchy, I don't know how long ago, he said, the question that the Black Panther parties basically live on when they talk to activists is, what now? What do we do now? And we have this golden opportunity staring us in the face. Pissed off people. They know that the two-party system, they work with each other. They're the same party. They just have different flavors and branding to them and marketing strategies. What do? And this is the plan. This is the plan that I feel like we're proposing. We start forming our own parallel system. That's the biggest way you can give a big middle finger to the whole system and say, fuck you. This is our reaction. And we're going to react by creating our own system, our own parallel economy. And they will hate that. And if they hate it, it means we should do it. So, and that's why I'm making this call out. This is the first episode we've done on Colonial Outcast that is dedicated just to a call to action. Before, we always do geopolitical analysis. We tell people what a shit show this is. This is an episode that's dedicated to what do we do now? What do we do about the shit show? And that's why I really hope people in the pro-Palestine movement are listening to this episode, because they have proven themselves to be leaders who have been able to look past the psyops, look past the division tactics, look past the gaslighting. So the question is, okay, and they've been asking, we've been addressing this question, like, is the movement dying? Is it running out of steam? Are people exhausted? And it's like, yeah, they're exhausted because nothing's worked. The protesting has woken people up. That's true. The petitions to politicians has not worked. The petitions to institutions has not worked. Nothing's changed. Israel's still going to continue this genocide, and now it's turning into the ethnic cleansing phase, and then it's going to turn into the full-on, taking over Gaza and turning it into the next Dubai. And Bunchy said something amazing, and then exactly I agree with him. He said, there will be no free Palestine unless there's a revolution here in the United States. Because as long as the United States is the sugar daddy of Israel, it will keep it on life support if it has to. Israel's economy can tank. Everything can fall apart. It doesn't matter. The U.S. empire will keep this little brother afloat and on life support. And the only way that Palestine is going to be free is if we cut off its main source of bombs, of money, of logistical support. And then it will wither. It will die on the vine. But it has to happen here. And that's the depressing reality for the Free Palestine.
I got a question.
Unless we have a revolution,
I got a question.
And that's just a brutal reality.
If that's okay.
Yeah. What's up?
I got a question. If that's okay, and this is for all the people who are part of the Free Palestine movement. First of all, Free Palestine. Let me just say that. I got my own reasons for my connection to that movement. Really, ain't nobody business but my own. But I have my own reasons for that. But I have a question, because I absolutely agree with what you're doing. I absolutely agree with everything that has come from that. But my question is this, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but honestly, did you have this same fervor when Taekwon down the street got killed by the police, or when little Jessica down the block got kicked out of school, or got told she had to do something different with her hair because it was braided on picture day? I would hope that you got the same fire for that. I would hope that you had the same fire for a young black man walking through a neighborhood and the neighborhood watch guy kills him. I would hope you had the same fire for that. Or that you would have the same fire for a gentleman walking home in Tacoma, Washington, and the police say he was checking cars, and the last words that came out of his mouth was, "I can't breathe, sir." Even being respectful as they take in his life. See, the problem is, and this is my issue with people who are quote unquote activists. There's a difference between an activist and a revolutionary. And if you only an activist, you might fit into this fucking bag. Here's the problem. A problem that's 5,000 miles away from you is easy to be mad at. And it's easy to say, don't do that, because you ain't over there taking no bullets. You ain't got to worry about grenades. None of that shit bother you. You get to watch it on the screen and scream about how fucking mad you are about it. Whole time that's happening, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Manny Ellis, Saeed Joaquin, Benny Branch, and it dies out really quick. You get mad for a minute, and then it's right back to work. It's right back to the regularly scheduled program already in progress. Like something changed because you went outside and marched with a sign for this person whose life is gone. Again, Free Palestine, but I need you to have that same fire for the problems on your fucking front porch. If you can't do that, I don't want to hear nothing you got to say. We ain't got nothing to talk about.
Yeah, so I definitely do have I've kind of observed this from the beginning, and I think like when you ask like did all you people saying Free Palestine like have that same energy like during BLM or any of these other movements? And for a lot of people, the answer is no. For one really big reason is they weren't politically active until this shit started happening, and they don't have a lot of experience. They are activists. They're just like Palestine, but like. A lot of them are doing a really bad job, especially like engaging online with other people about like how to connect that to everything else that's going on, to the entire system of oppression. Like they're kind of like so new to this, they can't be like, okay, well, Palestine's really easy to connect to ICE. It's really easy to connect to the police state and the expansion of the police state, but they're also kind of very insular, and like they also don't go to any other kind of actions like ICE actions, prison abolition actions, and stuff like that. And that's something I have been advocating for from the fucking start. Because if you don't do that and you're only on the Palestine stuff, you're just gonna like annoy the shit out of people.
And that it's how much more stronger will we be?
Yeah.
How much more stronger will we be if we start unifying all these struggles? Like how much more stronger will the anti-ICE actions be when if they join arms with the Palestinian? How much more stronger?
And to be fair, I do see a shit ton of kefias that direct anti-ICE stuff.
Absolutely, but we need to formalize this alliance, and that's what I'm doing with. That's what we're trying to do with U8. U8. By the way, a lot of the sections in U8 are already being done right now. Yep. They're being done more efficiently than I could ever write it on a piece of paper, but they're not supported by the other aspects of this. Meaning, wouldn't it be great if you were doing anti-ICE actions and know that your kids are being watched by your neighbor? They have in a free daycare program. Wouldn't it be nice to know that, if you're going to blockade some weapons that are going to Israel, wouldn't it be nice to know that your neighborhood back home has everything taken care of? Like, we need to start stitching these efforts together. And that's why this call out, I'm asking the audience, if you are in these movements, like anti-ICE movements, Palestine movements, stopping the police from targeting Black people, and you're working for people who are unlawfully convicted of, get involved in this effort. And then we're gonna drop an email for this whole thing. So if you want, this episode we're crowdsourcing. This is the first time Colonial Outcast is officially asking you to turn Colonial Outcast audience into an actual community. We're going beyond the audience phase. Colonial Outcast is in the phase of now let's form communities based on our viewership to get involved in this initiative. And we have an entire team ready to support you. We got a whole team of people who can now help you actually start this process and start these communities. So like we all said, like Bunchy said, we're mad about what's happening to the Palestinians, but the same system that's doing that to Palestinians are doing it here at home, and they've been doing it for decades. It's just that it gets lost in the noise of the news and our everyday life. It's time to start stitching all this together.
That's also really important for people on the right. A lot of people on the right are starting to get more politically involved because they have these really toxic ideas like the Jews are controlling our government, classic neo-Nazi shit that was engineered by people like Dr. Goebbels to stop a critique of financialized interests. That's why it was ginned up like that. So you also have to connect it to again, this is why a huge thing looking at Texas, and maybe I might be getting political in Texas in the very near future, data centers. Super easy to make that connection. I did it in 2 paragraphs at the top of the show. So we have to absolutely, I'm just bringing that up for people who are starting to get more politically active based on not necessarily the pro-Palestine issue, but the anti-Israel issue. And you can easily connect that to the police state, the national security state, which they're supposed to really care about. Because again, we're realizing that our government really doesn't have anything to offer working people. The militarization of the police and the mobilization of the National Guard is the housing crisis plan. It's the student debt plan. It's the healthcare plan. It's the climate displacement plan. And things like Palantir's national database, that's a force multiplier. A force multiplier is something that effectually gives you the presence of more ground troops without actually having those bodies on the ground. So another force multiplier is like mobility, the ability to be so mobile that you can conduct 3 different operations in a night instead of only 2. Well, these predictive policing algorithms that will disproportionately affect lower income and Black and brown neighborhoods, well, those are force multipliers too, to crack down on dissent based off AI-driven algorithms. And everybody should care about that if you care about, again, universal sovereignty.
United sovereignty.
United sovereignty. Sorry.
In accordance with that, if you hear anything about ShotSpotter in your city, organize people against it immediately. They brought ShotSpotter to Tacoma. But the thing is, they snuck ShotSpotter into Tacoma. Nobody knew. ShotSpotter is essentially technology that is supposedly can register the sound of gunshots and pinpoint where they're coming from, so that police can react faster.
It triangulates the sound of the gunshot by using multiple microphones, and then it triangulates where it could be coming from. They installed it up in Bakersfield, California as well.
I wasn't gonna give them that much credit, but it's some whole shit. Let me just say that. But either way, here's the problem though. It's been found that Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like it's been proven that it has misidentified cars backfiring. It has also been recordings from ShotSpotter, vocal recordings from ShotSpotter were used in a court case in Chicago where someone was actually convicted off the audio from ShotSpotter. This is not supposed to be recording people talking. It's supposed to be for triangulating gunshot sounds.
Yeah,
whatever.
It's full on surveillance.
Come to your city, cut the head off of it before it gets started.
You bring up a good point about surveillance, right?
Yes.
So everybody's paralyzed. Oh my God, they're rolling out like this surveillance state. They put in cameras everywhere, flock cameras, Palantirs listening to our phones. And I'm just like, what? We're helpless? We're helpless? We can't do anything about it? Like, they tried to do the same thing in London or in England, where they tried to install a 15-minute city, where they would basically punish people from driving too far away from the city using cameras that looked at license plates, sent them fees. And you know what the Brits did? They chopped down every single camera and they refused to pay their bills. They refused to pay their fees. And Britain just stopped it. They just said, all right, you know what? The people have spoken. Nobody's down for this. And they're all vandalizing all the cameras. And I'm just like, how the fuck are the British beating us at revolution? And there's 88,000. I can't hear you, Bunchy. Bunchy, you're muted.
You know how? Who did it here first? It was them. I'm just saying.
And I'm just like, we have millions of pissed off Americans who are broke, mentally unstable, addicted to shit. We vandalize each other's all the time. Why don't we focus that energy towards the system, and we can easily take this down overnight? And it just takes.
Absolutely.
And by the way, do not vandalize Palantir technology. It's there for our own safety. It's there for our own good. Be a good citizen. Okay, so just want to make that very clear.
And I think the other thing that people need to think about, especially when we're talking about developing plans like this, right, is think about how the system lies to us today and how the system keeps back vital information from the people today. Like shit that the people need to know in order for us to understand the situation as it is, in order to understand how we're being exploited and oppressed by the ruling class and what we need to do about it. How do they, and their weaknesses, right? The ruling class's weaknesses and their crimes and all that shit. How do they hide that shit from us? They don't, right? It's all there, right? All that information is online, right? Anyone can get most of it, right? It might be, there might be specific classified documents and shit like that where we don't find out about what they've done till decades later, but the bulk of it is just out there, right? The reality of the system is out there for anyone, right? But there's so much bad information too. The good information, they don't hide shit from us anymore. They overload people, right? They hit us with this fire hose where most people don't have the ability, the time, or the ability to differentiate good and bad information because there's so much bad information. There's so much shit going on, right? We live in a surveillance state. They're tracking what we're doing. If we do shit, somebody's going to see it most of the time. But guess what? We could have so many people doing so much shit that it doesn't matter. Right? Because even if some shit's recorded, somebody's got to look at it. You're right. You know what I mean? Somebody's got to, just because you're on camera doing something doesn't mean anybody's going to check the camera, right? If they have a million other things they got to be looking at, we got to be everywhere doing everything all together. And if we're doing that, we're going to overload their ability to actually separate the vital movements from the noise. Right.
We've talked about this with direct action techniques before, again, bringing it back to how ineffective, the protesting was during the Palestine heyday. It was these massive block protests of like 20,000 people following, certain routes. Just from a basic practical level, cops aren't designed to be able to coordinate multiple efforts across the city. They're just not. So what's more effective, 10,000 people or like 100 10-person things?
Yeah, it's impossible. And that's what blow that up on a national scale. Imagine if every single neighborhood was rebelling, had their own internal economic system. They had their own businesses that were off grid. They had their own communication system, internal communication systems. Ain't no way. They don't have enough law. They don't have enough federal personnel to even track all that. the best they can do is try to like, poison the plan and say, hey, don't do this. Don't you do this. Like Kash Patel might come out and say, hey, this plan is, make some up. It's some terrorist plan. Like, but this is the most patriotic plan you can ever think of. So it's patriot. I always want to make that clear. This plan is patriot friendly, meaning anybody who's like has some nostalgia about what they think the United States is, fine. Live in that illusion that we're like this beautiful country of freedom. Okay, fine. You want to make that freedom a reality? This is what you can do. So that's my message on that. But I do want to go into specifics of this plan. Each of us was going to present a section just to give you all an idea of the detailed nature.
Real quick, I just wanted to give a concrete example of like alternative economies, especially during Jim Crow. I was just passing through Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Black Wall Street. If you go into the history of that, that's a really good example, which is why it had to be destroyed. So
it's been done before. Yeah, this plan has been done before. In the good old days, as they call it, that everybody misses. That's what you're missing. You're not missing the N-word. The N-word is not going to give you personal fulfillment or bigotry or whatever. It's the days when you had a village, a community, and a internal economy when the government wasn't shoving a camera up your ass just because you're going to a fucking intersection. Like those were the good old days. So anyways,
all right, yeah. Let's talk about sections and less about colonoscopies.
Yeah. Colonoscopy, that was the word. That was the more appropriate. Okay.
Oh, I think you're muted again.
Bunchy, you're muted again.
Oh, I definitely was. I didn't want to say that out loud.
Okay. Joe.
Yeah, that was weird.
All right, Mark.
Yeah. So this plan breaks down multiple sections, starting with collectivizing. Food and water sovereignty, self-defense, developing a self-defense program, and internal communications. Bunchy's going to talk about self-defense. He is the Minister of Defense for the Black Panther Party, the National Minister of Defense for Black Panther Party. Can't think of a better way of opening up this than with him talking about it.
Got to give him a prompt. How we starting this?
Oh, Bunchy, you hear me?
Oh, yeah, my bad. I was reading something that just got sent to me. It was either way, it doesn't matter. Where we start? We just gonna start with defense. We can start there. I mean, that's cool.
Let's start with defense. Yeah, okay. Because what's the point of growing food or having water if somebody can just come in, if the cops can just come in and smash it, or somebody can steal it?
Yeah, absolutely. Now it's funny because the primary concept here is almost contrary to intercommunalism, almost. And that's in establishing the lines of where your community is. You have to understand that. And the reason why you have to understand that is because in order for you to have united sovereignty, you have to understand what's sovereign. What is it that separates us that makes us have to be united? If it's all just one big space, then what's the point? Then you have to be able to not only declare those lines, but then be able to defend those lines. Defending those lines comes down to very many things. First of all, the very first step in community defense is what we mentioned earlier: knowing your neighbors, knowing each other, communicating with each other, and having a keen understanding of what safety and security in your community looks like to you. There's definitely some very intense internal training that will have to take place in order for you to exact community defense in a way that is up to the standard of what it will be required in order to keep the oppressors on the outside. That's going to come down to training in hand-to-hand combat. That's going to come down to training in how to properly handle different types of weapons, be they firearms, batons, anything you can think of as a weapon. There's an effective way to use it. The responsibility of the people who are taking the lead in this particular instance in the Four Winds program is to identify the people who are most capable in those roles in security and defense, and then train those people properly. Now, the most important people in the whole defense mechanism aren't going to be the people carrying guns. Those aren't the most important people. The most important people in the defense mechanism of any community is going to be people who see first and who say first. Those are the most important people.
Spotters.
Exactly. Yeah. See first, say first. Those are the most important people, because without them, the people who have done all of this intensive training could be sitting ducks. unbeknownst to themselves. And by virtue of doing this throughout any particular community and establishing those lines, now you have a renewed border, so to speak, of where the next community can begin developing their defense from that point. This makes it easier to move it across the entirety of a city, section by section. Unfortunately, the thing that's going to that's probably going to hinder the concept of community defense under any system, be it Four Winds or anything else, the thing that's going to cripple the ability to effectively defend your community is going to be some people's inability to connect themselves from their reliance on the police, or can disconnect themselves from their reliance on the state. They see them as the preeminent answer to what will solve the problem. Identifying the quote unquote crime element of your community is essential. Identifying the reason for that is essential. And then how you deal with that is essential. There has to be a standard set within the confines of community defense that makes the standard of expectation for every single person in that community clear. The people who are working in community defense can't be the ones who, they can't make all of those standards themselves. This has to be a what's the word I'm looking for? Shit. I love. Yes, it has to be a communal decision. It has to be a communal decision. So as we continue to move forward with trying to implement Four Winds, one of the first things that is going to be necessary is establishing those lines, and then developing the most effective ways to defend those lines in the event that it becomes necessary, and it will, because of the other things that are going to happen behind those lines. Much like Mark was saying, if you're growing your own food, if you're educating your children, if you're giving people all of these things that keep them from having to leave and go out and expend those resources, outside the community, they're coming in to get you. Mm-hmm. So it's imperative to know when they're coming, why they're coming, how they're coming, and the best ways to stop those things from happening. And that only happens through training, education, and dedication. Absolutely. I would say, I don't want to say the one thing that most people say, you can't be afraid. No, please be afraid. Please be afraid, but don't be crippled and afraid. Utilize that fear in a positive manner, because realistically speaking, that fear drives community defense, because I'm afraid someone is going to come here and harm the people that I care about. That should be great love blended with that fear should be all the inspiration you need. Should be, but I digress.
Well, to tack on to the defense mechanism that every community needs to have, because as you know, if it works, they're going to come to destroy it, just like they did Black Wall Street. The point is making all of America Black Wall Street, but this time nobody gets destroyed because all the Black Wall Streets are working together, the same type of thing. So that being said, what would make a community have a very ironclad defense system? Well, you got a lot of veterans out there. So, Doc, you being a Marine Corps vet, you're gonna introduce us to that section, is incorporating how veterans can play a huge part in this whole endeavor.
Absolutely. I mean, we have so many people, who have served the imperialist military. Unfortunately, for one reason or another, we did it for different reasons. I know a lot of people who joined because economically they felt like that was their only option, right? So it's very, if that's you, right, you can recognize like this is our chance to create a situation where more kids don't have to do that, right? And some of us did it because we actually believed it, right? I joined because Obama got me. When Bunchy said earlier that Obama, lied pretty, yeah, he lied real pretty, and I was a teenager and I fucking bought it, right? And I believed in this, this mission of going out and making the world a better place, and protecting people and protecting freedom, right? And got a cat. It might have been a lie, but that doesn't mean that you don't still have those ideals, and that they aren't good ones, and that this is an opportunity for us to actually act upon them, right? To actually defend those ideals that we signed up to protect, right? Even if it was a lie when we signed up to protect them, right? And not on our part, but on, you know, if we were lied to, right? The skills that we have, the skills that we learn, you know, and because the military is, you know, it's not just infantry, right? We have people doing so many different jobs, learning so many different skills, especially a lot of technical skills, right? Technical skills, administrative skills that are so helpful, right? Strategic understandings that are so helpful to every aspect of a community, right? Not just the military aspect, right? But all of it, right? The logistical aspects, the technological aspects. We have so much expertise that veterans can bring because of that time and because of those skills that they learned, right? And it's a way to frankly to make up for some of the harm that we did, right? And the key is, you know, when we are organizing our communities, it's going to look different in every community, right? The way that the Four Winds is implemented is going to look different, especially at the start in every community based on the skills that people have within that community, right? But when we are getting together, we can recognize that those people who do have military expertise can immediately take a larger role in that defense mechanism, especially if they were in combat arms, right? They can take a role where those skills where their skills fit, right? And impart what they were taught, not only from the aspect of understanding those skills, but also knowing what the empire knows, knowing how the empire works, knowing what the empire's strategies are, right? Knowing that the people, you know, who just see Marines in movies, right? And they're all these like badass super soldiers, like these, you know, 6'4" action heroes, right? You know, I can tell people who might be scared about fighting the government, I can tell them most Marines aren't that scary, right? The way that they're sold is not, you know, we had, you know.
It's hard to be that badass when you have an A-10 Warhog having your back. You know?
Yeah. No, absolutely, right. But and listen, not all of these people are that scary. Again, not all of these people are that formidable. There's many people who don't have any military experience who can be just as, you know, formidable or more so, right? But the point is taking those skills that we've learned, taking the experience that we've learned, dispelling the mythologies that a lot of people have about the military and military service, right? Because we know better, because we were there, and because we've experienced it, right? Taking all that knowledge and bringing it to the people, right? And understanding this doesn't necessarily make veterans like the leaders in the community, right? It doesn't mean that you're automatically Minister of Defense.
Hey, first of all, maybe some veterans shouldn't be in a leadership position, okay? Like, have you ever observed a veteran chat? Like 30 seconds in to like a Veterans for Peace, like direct action chat, I'm getting like anti-vaxxer shit. It's like, dude, just do the gun trading, man. We don't need the rest of it.
I might have been that anti-vaxxer in that chat group.
Yeah. Oh, man, look. That's dope. And yo, I'm glad you said all that too, Doc, because the one thing that I do want to make clear one thing before we move on. There was a point in time where there was a separation between the movement of particularly the Black liberation movement and people who had served in the military. But if you pay close enough attention, Geronimo Pratt, who was probably one of the more formidable Panthers in the 60s before he was in prison, the LA chapter surviving that shootout with the LAPD, with their newly invented SWAT team that they created specifically for the Panthers. They only survived that shootout because of his military training and what he taught them. So I personally, even as Minister of Defense, the comrades of mine who have had actual military training, I'm a member of the People's Army. I got all of my training in the People's Army, and everything I know I learned there. You understand what I'm saying? So, but I know that with the elevated science that these people know, there are questions that I can ask them and they can give me insights that I'm not going to be able to glean for myself. And that has been something that has changed drastically, particularly in the Black liberation movement, because people recognize the value of that the technological as well as the like you said, logistical, as well as the arm, all of the aspects of it that come with that military training have value in the movement. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, thank you so much. And Doc has been great. Like Doc and some of the other comrades for that did that thing. I feel for you because I was never going to do that. But like I appreciate y'all sharing your knowledge with me, most definitely. Thank you.
Absolutely.
One thing I wanted to say before I forget, and it's if any vets are listening, and you kind of want to get involved in this kind of thing, Bunchy brought it up about like how things are a little bit different now, like where being a full-time activist is really challenging. As vets, if you don't care about like going on fancy vacations, dude, get the 100% disability and become like full-time. Like, honestly, I don't care how you do it, get the 100% and get stuck in. All right, it's a zero-sum game, and if you're actually going to do something good with it, get it. That's all.
I would like to say that too, but then I'd have to practice what I preach. I was too lazy to file for disability, so I'm gonna get on that. Okay, so yeah, what Greg said, guys. But I will say this to vets. I do have touching on vets. Talk about revenge for a second. Let's talk about revenge. A lot of veterans are pissed off. They're very disgruntled. They're very bitter about how they were used as a tool and then thrown away like trash once they were used up. And they live in very solitary worlds. Oftentimes they deal with depression, they deal with suicidal thoughts, they deal with drug addiction. And my message on this, when it comes to this, like in relation to revolution, the best way you want to get revenge for that, you want to get payback for what you were used for, the best payback you could ever do is using this plan and helping the people form resistance. That's the perfect fuck you. The perfect fuck you is that all that training that you were given, you used it for imperial goals when you were in. Why not now use it for what you signed up for, which was protecting the people? This is the best form of revenge you could ever get, and I'll dive into my section. So I was debating on which section I should dive into, and I figured, well, what's the point of this whole plan? What's the point of it all? What's the point of revolution if it's not to raise every single person who's suffering out of their suffering? Everyone among us, the poor people, the homeless, the people who are houseless, the people who are in the worst of conditions, who are literally like some of the biggest victims of this empire. Some of us are in different tiers. Some of us are more comfortable than others. What is the point of revolution if we cannot first focus on the people who are living in the worst of conditions in this empire, in the imperial core? Which is why I made a section called leave nobody behind. Leave no one behind. Leave nobody behind, which is, I believe that is chapter 19. Chapter 19. So the humanity of the most marginalized. So we don't know how many people who are houseless in this nation who are experiencing extreme poverty, because those numbers are hidden. Because I believe that if the true numbers were revealed, we would be horrified. So, but and I know that not one person can save the whole population that's suffering. And that's why we often get overwhelmed with the idea of like, oh, how do you help all these houseless people? Well, think about it. If every sovereign community took it upon themselves to lift one person out of poverty in whatever capacity they could, whether it be helping them out, find a shelter, finding an abandoned house that's owned by private equity and putting them in there. It's another story. Getting them food, getting them what they need to survive, whatever you can. Y'all can figure it out better than I can. But if every neighborhood took it upon themselves to think tank how they could raise just 4 people out of poverty, it lessens the burden. If every neighborhood did that, we could lift every single American out of poverty. Right. And now we're really living up to our true message of the whole point of revolution, because we could have a revolution, but then there could still be poverty and people living in that poverty. Then what was the point? We're all a bunch of fucking hypocrites.
Happened plenty of times before.
Which is why when I see these Palestinian protests on these streets, the first thing that comes to my mind is like, that's awesome. But look, if y'all see a homeless person on the streets as you're protesting, that dude should be fucking rich after that protest, because all y'all should be giving him something, because that's the whole point. We gotta while we're fighting the empire, we have to help raise each other out. And I realize that's a big task. It's a monumental task, but that's why we don't have to all, that's why one person doesn't have to take on all the people who are suffering. But if every neighborhood started doing that to one or two people who are suffering from extreme poverty, then we're getting somewhere. Now we're walking what we're talking. And that's why I put that section in there. And there's a section in how we can deal with that. And that's going to involve people who are good with therapy, people who are good with dealing with all types of mental health issues. But every neighborhood has somebody like that. Every neighborhood has like a nurse. Every neighborhood has somebody who's good with, finding, whether it be like health, making sure somebody's healthy. Like the magic that happens when different people all come together, the expertise that can be in one room that can come up with solutions when you're think tanking, you'd be surprised. So that's another section.
So I think, and I do want to share a quick, just kind of a hopeful thought, right? And I will deal with that section as well. But I do think we want to understand, like, when the revolution comes, I really believe we are going to be able to eliminate really any poverty, very quickly. And when we talk about building up these, sovereign communities with sovereign resources, like that's a vehicle to wage revolution. But that doesn't mean, we're building a parallel system, but it's not to replace what's already there, right? Because what's already there, once we get to the point where we recognize what's already there is ours too, right? We built what's already there as well. And we built it, the people built it, labor built it, labor is entitled to what it has built, right? And we're going to take that shit, right? And the fact is, we will have a huge advantage at that stage over any previous revolutionary movement, because this is such a wealthy country that we're in, right? There is so much wealth, there is so much excess. It's such an advanced, capitalist country that we're not dealing with trying to, pull a huge nation out of feudalism, right? Trying to pull a huge nation out of being technologically behind the rest of the world, not able to take care of everyone because of a history of, exploitation and colonialism and feudalism, right? We have that advantage that there is so much wealth here, that making sure that everyone has a good standard of living once a revolution is successful, I think will be, it will be much easier than what we see in, the Cuban Revolution, or, you know what I mean? But
also there won't be a United States to sanction any revolutionary state.
Absolutely. Also, yeah, exactly. So we will have huge material advantages that are going to make it much easier for the revolution here, once it seizes power, to solve those economic issues for everyone, right? And by the way, to any, again, in case there's a right winger listening, or in case there's somebody who doesn't like socialism listening, right? Like, listen, if you don't like my politics, listen to what we're talking about with the Four Winds. Listen to what we're talking about with U8, right? I'm talking about giving you economic power. I'm talking about giving you military power, right? Work that program with us, and you will have military and economic power. And then if I tell you need to do something you don't want to do, you'll have the ability to do something about it, right? But I do think that in the immediate, absolutely, we need to be taking care of dispossessed people. We need to be taking care of the poorest and the most oppressed and the most marginalized, and the unhoused. And we need to recognize that number is growing, and it's going to keep growing, right? And if anyone thinks like I don't have to worry about this issue, or this idea of like I have a good job, so I'm going to be okay, or if you work hard, whatever, that mentality. No matter what your job is, almost no matter what your job is, with a few exceptions, pretty soon there's going to be a machine that does it, right? So you might want to think about how we take care of people who are not able to effectively sell their labor, or sell their labor for enough to live on, because very soon it could be you, because you could be getting replaced by a robot, for real, right? No one is in that situation here.
Yeah, and they will not. And they will not be passing some sort of sci-fi dystopia universal basic income shit for you to live off of, okay?
No, that's the part of the that's a part of the sci-fi movie that will not be coming true. All the other horrifying parts, yeah.
I do want to say real quick, gentlemen. I was trying to do this as technologically quiet as I possibly could, but it's just not working out. I dropped a message in the private chat. I also left you gentlemen a message on Signal. I have to go. Like right now.
Okay, yeah, we're about to wrap anyways. So
okay. Well, I thank you so much for having us, man. And those of you who are watching, who are listening, whatever the case may be, thank you so much for locking in. I hope that you pay attention to the concepts that are being presented, and I hope that you are willing to embrace them and maybe perhaps try to organize people in your own communities to take back some political power, because you cannot exact a political consequence if you don't have political power. All power to the people, yeah.
All power, boss. Thank you, boss. Well, there's the plan. So whenever a liberal asks you, what's the plan, radical?
It's a big plan. It's going to be very complicated, very challenging, and it's going to take a long fucking time. And it's going to take a lot of work. All right. But your first thing is to do, what is it, everybody? Get to know some of your neighbors. Step one. That's actually pretty revolutionary. It's pretty revolutionary based off our own society. I don't know my neighbors. Like, I know a couple, but I don't like hang out or talk to them, and I haven't really made an effort. So, you know what I think we could do here on this channel? Because there's so many different chapters, maybe we should make an episode on each one and like practically do it. Like, I'm trying to get a camera crew together in Austin. What if I start doing this as part of like a campaign? So,
dude, if you do that, I will take back every mean thing I ever said to you. In the past 2 years.
Well,
I will take it all back. I'll take it all back. I'll brush your hair. I'll fly to Austin and brush your hair for the cameras for your campaign, dude.
Yeah. Okay.
He said some shit to me, so yeah, that's
But okay, so this is going to now. This only is going to work if we make this thing a cultural phenomena. Again, the whole plan can make perfect sense. It could be logical, but unless it's a cultural phenomena and it goes viral, it ain't gonna work. And so that's why we've been brainstorming how we can make this thing go viral and turn it into a social media trend. And it starts with giving. It goes back to my theory of the best, most effective form of protesting is, instead of asking people to care about something you care about, tell them that you care about them first and actually do something materially for them. So I came up with the concept. The website, this plan is on the website, u8.net, and the website is connected to a QR code. And the way I thought about it is, if we start doing a social media trend where everybody, especially our listeners, print off this QR code, and when they're at the grocery store, they leave behind some cash for the person behind them, or at the cafe or wherever, or they give it to somebody who they feel they just want to, or any random act of kindness, you do it for them and give them this QR code. And here's a quick video of an example of how easy it is. This is how revolution can really start, especially. So that's QR code. I'm cutting it up. So now I got these QR codes that I printed off from the website. At the grocery store, there's a QR code, u8.net. There's some cash.
This is for the gentleman behind me. For your grocery, sir. Yeah, you got it.
It's that fucking simple. We can spread this that way. And trust me, the likelihood of that person looking up that QR code is a lot more likely because I gave him some cash for his groceries. So this is how we can spread it. And if we can record ourselves, hey, we can turn all that social media ego into actual revolution. After all, capitalism has convinced us to keep up with the Joneses by buying the nicest car and showing that off on social media, or making a cool video of our town on social media. Well, if you want to stroke your ego, make a video of yourself giving to somebody so you can stroke your ego, but you're also spreading revolution. So let's use the tools that capitalism has used to kind of box us into economic slavery, and let's use it for liberation. Let's use it for revolution. We can use all the tools that capitalism uses to brainwash people, and we can use them in the opposite direction. So think about that.
We just need to all stroke ourselves and make videos of it, and
make it go viral.
And make it go viral. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea. Well, thanks, Greg. Appreciate you dedicating your time for this episode. I know it's late for you.
Yeah, it's almost midnight here in Boston. You guys are 3 hours behind. I don't know where Doc's coming in from, but you are.
We're all Pacific Standard Time here.
Yeah. I gotta wake up super early and take a train to New York and begin the New York festivities and start working on something. I don't want to sound like a local band being like, "Hey, stay tuned, guys. Big things happening behind the scenes." But yeah, we'll see.
Fuck yeah, man.
And in the meantime, meet your neighbors. Read the friggin' thing. Mark will put it in the description, so you'll have a link to it, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, if you guys want to keep talking more, I am going to sign off.
We'll probably sign off too. I know we all got our families to get back to.
All right, guys.
It's been great talking to y'all. All power to the people.
Appreciate you, Doc. Thank you so much.
Power to the people. Thanks so much for listening. Here is the plan. I want to make a series about this, going down the whole list with the actual camera crew. So we're going to try to do that as well because it's a great idea. All right. So this has been the plan on Colonial Outcasts. And we hope to see you maybe next week. So cheers, y'all. And y'all have a good rest of your Sunday.
All power.